All right, so we're moving into the third turn, the second hour of Neerwinden. This is going to be massively long if it takes the entire day, right? And what has happened so far? So, in the first turn, the French lost a major cav unit over here. I'm not going to be able to recoup everything that's happened throughout the course of the game as we go through these, but we'll try to catch the major points. That disrupted any attacks along that flank. The Brits pulled back with their attacking units. Throughout most of the fortified line, the French have been kind of stymied. Not really hurt too badly, but they're stuck in place fighting over that line. But over here, and I should have put better units over here, I think, the French have managed to push through and create some disruption, and now we've got some Allied forces beginning to head over to try to stem any kind of damage that's happening there. In order to win the game, you have to take one of the you have to basically route everything in one of the three central wings. I don't like the term for it. Or take route all the units in both of the flank wings. So winning here is not enough, right? But it might be able to allow me to collapse one of the important ones. On the other hand, I could also win here, but because there's not a lot defending in either case. But yeah. The ability to shift forces, or the mechanisms to shift forces, they allow you to get things into other wings so that not everything is routed, but it's not automatic. So there could be opportunities for collapsing the enemy army in a way that, you know, may not be absolutely obvious if you had full control. I don't know if that's it for today. I'll probably be up at some point later on. But between my sleep and raid and this, yeah, didn't get anything done. I'm okay with that. You know, to some extent, I'm just like, yeah, let me play as many games as I can and hope that this all ends pretty quickly. Not just this. Okay, I screwed up. Probably too late to do anything of value about it right now, but in the first turn or second turn or something, and in this turn I just moved my routed units 2 hexes. Why? I don't know, but here each routed unit moves its full movement allowance along the path of least resistance. Well, I didn't think about it. Routed unit markers have a movement allowance of 4, so technically, you know, these guys should have moved further. I think there was some where I set things up. Oh, and this guy should have too. One, I think it's 2 for forest. Yeah, 2, 3, 4 to there, I guess. I think they've got to move as directly towards, I don't know, how is it worded here? Routed units may never be rallied when placed. They're placed on. There was something about open hex. Yeah, they still have to go a direct path, so I had to cross the stream and go into the woods there, which is no big deal. It really doesn't make a difference. There probably would have been some places where the way things were set up, 4 hexes would have caused problems. Generally, I think the problems should happen real close to the front line when you've got something like a secondary line set up, or you've got some density in your primary line. That's where the disruption is going to really happen. Once you get beyond that, yeah, you see things like this happen, and you may be in a formation in an orders like dress ranks or something where you're actually going to be disrupted by the routing units. But, you know, so there might have been different deformations on the map that would have happened, but I'll keep that in mind. That was something the developer pointed out. And you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to unflip all these. Oh, God. All right. I guess I do that. Whoops. When I come up here with a little rules correction and error correction like that, seeing the game again, it makes me want to play, right? It's the nature. I like playing war games, man. But doing this makes me really not want to play now. It's just the, you know, large scale, and yeah, I didn't have all the counters flipped over anyway to begin with because we're passing. I'm not playing out that whole delay of game stuff. But anyway, here it is, Wednesday, pretty day. I wake up just in time for sort of the raid day change. At least, I don't know, there's like a couple of big events over the day time-wise that you want to be there for. And unfortunately, one is at 5 p.m. and then one's at 2 a.m. and one's at like 4 a.m. You can kind of see how that game influences, you know, my sleep schedule. So in this case, I was awake till 9 a.m. I'm not going to do something when I'm at the end, you know, at the end of my energy at 9 in the morning. And then, you know, 7.5 hours later, it's time to get on the computer again and I'm hungry. And now it's like 6:30 and, you know, the daylight's gone. And I come up here saying, you know, I don't want to really go outside and do anything. There's not much to do anyway. I mean, I could go for a walk or do a little bit of yard work, I guess. But in this kind of, you know, time period or whatever, I just don't feel like I've got like an hour of good daylight, maybe a little more. Definitely a little more. But this is me we're talking about. Unless there's somebody to activate me. And that need not be them being active in activating me. Like I would ask my wife to go out for a walk or something on a day like this after work or whatever. Although after work for me was like 3, not 5. Well, not 6:30, so, you know, whatever. But I convinced myself, hey, I'm going to come up here and play this. At the beginning of a turn, and I really don't have the will. Like, I assume I will later on tonight and be able to start the process again. It's not like it's all that hard what I have to do. I pop off some artillery and then I do the command stuff and everything. It seems easy. But it's just there's such a bad taste in my mouth from, you know, the last turn, really. And finding more counters that were problematic and everything. I would say when you're coming, so look, if you've already got an established series and everything is well loved and everything, people will find their way to dealing with little problems. But when you're having to fight and struggle to learn a very different system, man, it's especially important to get the components so that they work, so that they're right, you know? And it's and especially when it's something, you know, like this. Sure, you got Ben Hall's name on there, and an interesting design. There's no question about that. But you also, which I compare, like, One by the Sword, I just don't think was all that interesting. It didn't excite me. This kind of did. But it is on a topic that not a lot of people are super excited about. Sure, there's a slice of us, you know, but that slice of us is the kind of people who first probably pushed into musket and pike. And then it became, it kind of snowballed and it like drew people in, right? But this, man, first of all, this is harder work, I think. Not on the individual engagement, whatever, but in the overall, just because this is a pretty damn big battle, right, compared to those guys. And I like that about it. That's actually an appealing factor to me. But yeah, even I am discouraged enough that I've come up here, and this is not the first time, a couple of times, and I'm just like, I can't. And this is going to be one of them. I'm going to sit outside and maybe have a drink and enjoy the evening reading. I think that seems better than anything else that I'm liable to do. It's nice and warm outside too. It's cold in my house all the time. That whole concept, going outside and sitting and reading just on my porch, whatever, it doesn't do me any good, right? Like, there's things I need to do. I need to put away Gloomhaven. Okay, whatever. I can do that whenever. But, I have dishes to do. I have my taxes to do. It's getting damn close. I don't know that I actually need to do them. I certainly could leave them by. The question is whether there's anything that I get out of filing. I don't think there is. I think that I'm just like absolutely neutral. I don't think there's any money that's available to me. But it should also, I don't know. It takes about an hour. and for me, giving an hour up, even though I waste so many hours, is just so absolutely like anathema in some sort of sense. But yeah, I mean, the only things that come to mind that are kind of positive, I could bring some books back to the little library. I have a nice sized pile. That's not a long walk. I could do a little bit of shit in the yard, but everything gets put off as to, well, this sounds like a better thing for me than, just playing more Raid, which I could also do. But I pulled myself away. I have many hours before I can use most of the energy that I have in the game. Okay. I make a lot of comments about Raid. I started the turn, fired off the artillery, got a couple of good shots in. Only the French have artillery left, I think. Mainly because I fucked up, right? I didn't put the British artillery or the Allied artillery behind the line, where it would be safer. Just forgetting hey, you can lob the shells over the front line. That isn't usually the case in these tactical gunpowder era games, so it just didn't stick to me very well. But I got into some discussion with one of my regular viewers about, hey, you could do X, Y, and Z to make Raid, not interfere as much with you, like, use a mobile phone or something. I couldn't play it on a mobile phone, that's one thing. But, I have a computer up here, and when I was playing up here, I was playing on sort of a fake account, but there's advantages to doing that in between turns or whatever. But it was like really distracting to have to run back and forth and deal with that in the midst of the game. And likewise with DAC, a couple of times I had things set so that the game would run kind of automatically, but I would check back on it. But honestly, I mean, I end up finding ways to waste my time so that I can't go out and can't do things and whatnot. Raid is demanding, but not there's a reason that I'm playing something so demanding. And part of that reason may be to give me an excuse not to have to do anything without, I don't know. Things are complicated in my head. Anyway, I did the artillery fire. Now I come over and the French have to make the first wing choice because they have the better commander. And again, I think that's just a fuck up. But no official errata has been produced. No set of questions that's fairly, when I dealt with, what was it? One of these games up here. This one, Time of Wars. CDG type game that had a lot of questions about the rules and a lot of oopses and whatnot. And there wasn't like a single sort of thread tying them. There was in that a single thread kind of tying everything together. I don't see anything that's popular like that over on BGG. Maybe there is over on Consim World. I don't know. I no longer go there for whatever reason. I kind of don't like, I don't know. Anyway, one of the problems is that they put the moderation in Consim World in like the hands of the person who, of the company that owns the game or whatever. So it's like, in some cases, there's definite censorship going on, which is much, much worse than the kind of community-destroying moderation that BGG has as its default. If you want to deal with information, you can't have that kind of limitation. Anyway, yeah, I got to make my decisions on each of these wings and what, if any, units are going to switch. Now, the biggest and most interesting facet is this wing over here, which is getting a little sparse, and I've set up to start sliding units over into it. I don't know that there's much that the French want to do on theirs. They still have, a heavy density of forces. Do I have room? I don't even have room for another brigade up here, because this only holds 3 brigades. I could do a swap out and get the cav up there, and that might actually do me some good. So maybe I think about that. But if that's the case, it's probably the last thing I want to do, which is painful. It's like you look over, figure out what the most important thing you want done is, and then you don't want to deal with that. This one's still not in conformance because of this Cadreau unit here. But this is a leader, not a unit. So I could actually put Cadreau on the front line and extend a front up there. That doesn't sound like a bad idea, I say. Okay, so we had a success there, and I'm going to put this kind of in the halfway point, but he's going to take that leftmost rank. But that's interesting because I've opened up a space. The support wing, or the support line, no longer exists. That automatically does an involuntary commitment of this Bellegarde cavalry up from reserve to support. I don't have to make any rolls for that because I cleared that wing. Thing worth noting, I'm allowed to create a command situation that is illegal right now, right? Just like before when I committed this cav and this infantry was further up or whatever. I then have to rectify it. And in this case, I've got overlap of Asfeld's cav with this infantry regiment, and actually with this cav. I was thinking, oh, down the line here, because that's how I'm going to move, but actually, I'm violating the principles, even if you take any kind of line bending or whatever, in case there isn't any here. So it wouldn't affect things. By the way, the designer got back to me. The developer got back to me about a number of things, but one of them is, yeah, I've got it right that the lines should be able to bend and you do things relative to the line. Things like that rule getting through. So some of the stuff had to do, first of all, the counter fuck-ups. Obviously, none of that was intended. That's a matter of enough eyes weren't on it at the right time late in the publication process, and there's reasons for that. What happened with the rule book in a number of cases is that what they sent to the printer was not what they intended. Some things like images ended up, covering text pieces and stuff like that. The one rule that I had that was poorly written, apparently the playtest copies had, the one that I keep harping on, playtest copies had a better version of that, and somehow very late in the process, something got changed. I don't think that's the case with the wording surrounding the lines and how they're formed. It's possible somebody tried to make a shorter rule book, although, this isn't that long, certainly not for a GMT rule book, which tend to have a lot of bloat in them. But it's possible that something was done as a late minute change, but it kind of feels more like the appropriate level of blind testing just wasn't done. And I harp on this every time. I don't, you don't have blind testing being listed. You have play testers. And these are, this is, I hope, not the total number of people who play tested it, but rather play test leaders, essentially. The people who are responsible for, giving write-ups and whatnot. And I don't know what the answer with something like that is. Like, if you're and I'm assuming the playtesting is sent out in sort of a blind test type format at this point. I can't see anything else working, unless this is all a hub of people who are, near the designer. Everything seems online now. And it seems like blind testing would be very, very easy. Now, if the problem with that is, if everything's online and whatnot, everything's kind of a blind test, but if you end up blind testing early, play testing the system at a very early stage, you get answers to your questions, and then they've never, you're never facing the elephant again the first time. Right? You've got preconceptions of what the system does and whatnot. You don't really worry. You're not looking at the rules and trying to learn it from the first time. And something like the linear functionality and whatnot, man, you really need to hand an almost finished game to a couple of these playtest groups. And a lot of this, I don't know, a lot of the mistakes and whatnot may be a matter of maybe this game was being rushed out the door or whatever, but it's happening way too often, right? There are just mistakes happening way too often on the GMT side. And I'm just like, yeah. I haven't canceled my pre-orders yet, but I've been not making any either. English, of course, with their worst leader, able to see what the French do, they'll just follow suit by using the same command line. I don't see any reason to change anything there. I'm not planning on shifting forces there. This might be scary. It looks okay right now. I've got a big cav flank there. You know what? Yeah, chicken butt. I don't have a lot of reserve cav there. I am going to try to move this infantry actually instead. And we take a quick look. We're going to be moving to a different brigade or to a different wing. That's a 1. That's hard to do. And we'll be doing that from the support line. Doesn't look like there's much that I can do there. All right, that's just not going to work anyway. That's fine. But then I go to the French, and I've got something interesting here. So here I've got a bunch of infantry in this Rumsdorf area. And I feel like this area is getting a little weak. I'm going to try to commit, I think, this hot foot, not the pompon. Hot foot's over here. I'm going to try to commit that over into here, but I'm going to try to commit it all the way to the support line. So I have to make 2 rolls to do that, and I'm allowed to do this. The first is the transfer. I'm at +1 on this, so I need a 2 to transfer. I don't think I have, in fact, I can't try to move him into the support here. So that'll work fine. I got to decide whether or not I want the commander up there. Their losses have been kind of frightening. I like the advantage from them, but both sides are beginning to peel their wing commanders off of the brigades. You know, the French did it, and then the Allies are like, okay, I'll do it too. Because the inability or the reduction of ability to be able to transfer is going to be kind of ugly. The French actually have a little bit more leeway in terms of leaving their commanders, their wing commanders on the brigades, because they probably don't need to transfer units as much, but it's... And in fact, I was giving the bonus here, so I kind of had to, actually. And I did the same here, so that's okay, too. Giving the bonus to commanding a different unit. I'm in something of a sticky situation here, as I've used Luxembourg. I should have moved him over here. This might have been more important, but I used Luxembourg to commit this Harborville unit to the front. Now I'm going to put it all the way on the extreme right, but no matter what, the problem is that Surbach is covering this entire front, but with a big ass gap, and I would like to get another unit up on the front. Also Surville's a little beaten up, but that's a different matter, isn't it? I don't know what happens. Can I take a charging unit and try to commit it somewhere else? Wow. Maybe. But yeah, I'm going to have trouble getting that into conformance with those brigades into conformance. Maybe that it doesn't matter that Maximilian's been replaced. He's an army commander with a rating of 0. I'm just going to get rid of this extra counter that I was using. I think, and again, the rules don't specify this anywhere, but I think he basically can just become the army commander who can't do anything bonus. He's a 0 rating to give him an advantage, to give him a further possible advantage over the French army commander. So for example, if Luxembourg goes away, I don't know who he gets replaced with. Joyeuse, who's a 0. Now, if that was the case, there should be no Joyeuse counter, because he doesn't serve any point either, right? And you don't need an army commander. If you run out of army commanders, you just don't have one. So it's kind of like, okay, well, my argument works just fine, and it won't work if he somehow gets killed, but I don't think he can anymore. He can no longer be attached to a brigade, so whatever. But the Joyeuse counter is absolutely pointless. I don't know. Over here I decided to keep the French commander in charge, attached to the Reynaud infantry, and I don't know what to do here. I need to try to move that. It's very hard to transfer your unit. Transferring, so here's a weird thing. Yeah, there's a bonus if transferring if the reserve is full. If the support is full from the reserve. So, and transferring cav from the reserve gives a bonus. So yeah, these weren't as hard as I thought they would be. But right now that means I have -1, so I need a 2 instead of a 1, and that won't work either. We'll just flip him over. And we're going to try one more funky thing. We're going to try a relief in place. That's a complicated functionality. Do I want to pull Balial? Do I want to pull the leader off Balial to do this? I think so. I think it's a worthwhile thing. So that means I'm doing one. There's nothing about relief in place here. No modifiers. I think there's no bonus modifiers there. So I need a 2 to bring this cav in. And do I have 2 cav units there? I do. I guess to bring Filippo. Yeah, see, this isn't going to be much bigger. But if I bring Filippo in instead of, who's that there? Greater. That'll give Greater a chance to kind of try to recover. And that's not going to work either. So, and then one final. Is there anything I want to do here? Yeah, I want to try to bring, well, I want to try to do something up here, and I'm not sure what. I can't really bring my cav into play without doing a relief in place, but I can bring a second cav up into the support line. I don't know if that's really all that effective, so I'll go for the relief in place, I guess. And I will try to relieve whoever this is, Ramsey, back here, and get him replaced with some cav. And that also is not going to work, which is good, because like the situation here, it would almost assuredly create some kind of problem, like in terms of maintaining the integrity of the orders. Okay, so I think that brings me to actually moving units, and at this point, the Brits have a couple, or the Allies have address ranks in play, but all the charges are over here on the French side. And those are the ones I have to do first. So I'm trying to figure out what happened. I went to the asphalt unit, which is up here. It's out of compliance. I'm trying to figure out what happens. Okay. What I'd like to do is I'd like to address ranks. I don't think I can. A brigade that's not in compliance with these is marked as a result of transfer of commitment. No. A brigade is, when it's activated, automatically changes to a march, and I have to try to move these units into compliance. Is that even possible? I don't think it is. Let me explain why. So asphalt is going to go away. I don't have a possibility to move into compliance because these two units are in the same line and there has to be an overlap. I can't move out of my sector. I can't fix this in any way. I don't know what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to fall back a hex and call that good enough. But there's actually nothing I can do, from what I can tell. The problem with what I did, fuck. I mean, moving closer doesn't actually help. Nothing helps. I was going to move back to this line, but I can't do that because it takes all my movement to restack a hex. So I'm just going to try to create some room for these guys to move up. I'll create it like that. I had enough movement points to do that. And that way my artillery can fire next turn, because it's not like being immediately screened by a bunch of horseflesh right in front of it. Another question arises. I decide to do the Dalincourt infantry. They attempt to dress ranks. They fail. That means I have to charge, so this unit moves up into this hex. That's fine. I'm all good there. What's up with Dalincourt? Well, they've got two stacks that are in firefights here. Now, very clearly, I could attack this, but the question that arises, but I don't want to. The question that arises is, can I attack this? Now, the restriction in linear warfare is a hex can be attacked multiple times, but each combat is resolved individually. However, the player may not designate multiple attacks against a single hex when there are enemy units undesignated for attack in the same or higher priority. Well, both of these units were in the same priority, so I'm able to hit either of them by that rule. What about the firefight rule? Does that impact this at all? Because, I mean, they're firing at each other, right? You would think I would have to engage this unit because these are engaged in some sort of way. But I don't think the rules says this. When either unit is activated, cannot move or attack. The only way to voluntarily is address ranks. A unit locked in firefight can be attacked by another unit. It looks like there is no penalty for a unit to be locked into multiple firefights. Yeah, it looks like that firefight doesn't count as combat, so I can launch this attack here. Now, I'm going to be attacking with an unsupported wing across. Yeah, I really didn't want to make this attack, right? I don't want to make either of them. I'm probably at -4 either way, but loosening the firefight would help, I guess, in some way. Plus, I wouldn't be taking a first fire from this, although it might do so on its own turn because I'm in charge formation. The net effect of that is I end up in another firefight. Dalincourt is pinned in place there. I think I came up because RAID was broken, like server maintenance for 20 minutes or something. I think I've overcome that. And again, I'm still not really thrilled with the idea of playing this. Like, I don't really need to go run do RAID for any particular reason, but I'm really not getting a kick. Actually, I do really need to. Wow, I forgot about that. There is something going on that I was trying to complete that unfortunately I couldn't log in. So yeah, we're breaking. Thursday about 11 a.m. I woke up a couple hours ago with not enough sleep and tried to go back to sleep a couple of times, listening to documentaries, whatever, and then decided, yeah, that's not going to work. Just stayed awake listening to them. Also finished my book that I'm reading. But yeah, let's get started with the next activation of units under charge orders. All right, so Saarbrück is unable to move into their, did I fuck up with these guys? I don't think so. Into dress ranks. Is it Saarbrück? I don't know. Surbeck. But they're also in a position where they're not in compliance because these guys are moving up to their right. And in fact, these units are not going to be able to get into compliance until something happens. I guess I could switch this to the left because Saarbrück doesn't have anything under firefight down here. So I could shift them all to the right in the hopes that next turn I can do a shift of these two brigades. I made kind of a stupid decision to try to inject in this direction, which is where I wanted the fresh troops, but I could also pull Surbeck off the line entirely, perhaps, whichever one might be easier will be what I guess I attempt. But right now, I'm thrown into march orders and told, basically, do what you can to fix the situation. The most important thing is brigade integrity, which means these guys can just move over and get over there. The attempt to accomplish this has caused me nothing but woe. Whoa. I may change, I don't know. I'm thinking I may change this because this unit basically had to do an about face and march across here, and now it's wiggling its ass in front of the enemy. Whereas I could leave this in place up here at some risk. And this guy, he has this guy underneath him. This guy was over here, I think. He went 1-2, but what he could do is 1-2, 3, 4 here, and 1, 2, I can stay like this. And that'll keep a connection between all my units, which makes me achieve brigade connectivity. But I still have a problem in that I didn't align these right. But you see, I'm like, you're doing things you wouldn't normally have to do in a game, right? And that's very uncomfortable. And some of the things it feels like you might have to do feel really inappropriate. Like that initial thought that like, yeah, I just have to turn around and walk away. That might happen in some cases. Be unlikely, but yeah, it puts you in this really, really weird position. Now the guards are no longer charging. I'm just, because I'm struggling so much with what the adherence, the brigade adherence rules to the command chart mean. I'm just trying to do this as simply as possible instead of trying to be clever with like, let's move one of these because I get a slight advantage from that. Nah. The issue is it's not absolutely clear just looking on the board, and again, this has to do with the presentation, although I don't know if there's an easy way to do this, that units are beaten up and need to dress ranks. I look and I see these guys all flipped over, and I'm like, oh, well, I should take this Salis unit here, which is next in line, out of charge into dress ranks. But honestly, none of its units could be repaired by address ranks. They're all out. They just fired their initial volley. They're never going to improve off of that. So I probably want to keep fighting with them, I guess. I don't know. I think I'm going to swing, actually, I am going to swing down to the greater ones because I understand more what I want to do from this direction than I do from the center at this point. Feels a little bit like how I was thinking in the Central Front series. We're getting to a position where the die rolls are really mattering. Greater, which I left in charge, I wanted to get it out of charge, but I couldn't. Geez, were they... Oh man, this is so fucking complicated because they were not, they actually, fuck, I think I screwed up with them. Because there was a unit here, a unit up here. They were in a position where they were not in compliance, so they should have been flung into march. They couldn't keep their charge order. And I fucked up completely. Let me complete the discussion that I was having, which is, and then I'll look and try to figure out if I can repair this situation. So this unit was in a firefight. This unit was back here. So I mean, they would have been disorganized, out of compliance. But wait, two units were together. Hold on. And maybe I'm mixing things up here. I had something else I wanted to say, but I'm fucked up. If no units are in, it automatically changes to dress ranks. The isolated units are treated as if under a march order. Okay, so this unit's not attacking. This unit was here, so it would have made its attack. This other unit would not have. It's under a march order. And it legitimately could have moved here. So it's not routed. Because its order changed from a charge order to a march order. I thought it was in charge order, but the positioning was kind of like this. And so I thought everybody could, fill in the line and attack. It's not what's going to happen. But we did take one loss from the only unit that was still in charge order, not under a firefight. And now let's go into what the situation was there. In both these attacks, one that I had to retract, the French ended up with something like a 0 attack factor. So if we look at this guy, he's got 2 hits on him. One of them's already accounted for in the strength here. The other one is not. Again, something kind of fucked up in the presentation. Like, it's just not as easily dealt with. I don't know what you should do, but you get used to it. It feels weird. So this 2 under here means I subtract 1 off the strength from the unit. So he would be a 1 strength. This unit is in the same position. Now, with this unit here, we both had open flanks. This guy had 2 open flanks. This guy had 1. And that means I was rolling on the +1 table. I got like a 7. That's a 1 AR. Because these units are already worn out, the attacker's at a disadvantage. Well, whoever gets the bad result is at a disadvantage, right? And even on the +1 table, it still favors the defender by doing damage to the attacker first. Just as often as it does with the defender. Really the only difference is there's one additional, the attacker just didn't really go in. They fall back. Like they didn't pitch into close battle at all. Okay. The situation was, now this unit then had routed, and the situation was similar with this unit up here, where it was attacking equal odds across a stream, so I'm at -1, but I'm at +1 because I had an open flank here, because this was already gone, but the Brits had 2 open flanks, so again I was at +1. I got the same damn die roll, and ended up routing. That route stays because that unit was allowed to charge. This unit's in a firefight, it can't attack. This unit was in a forced into march formation. And this guy's going to be in that same position. He's going to have to do something like this. So the restrictions on brigade integrity are a little different than here. But then there's another kind of integrity back here. Yeah. So then there's non-compliance issues. I was not in a non-compliance issue. I hope. It's hard to tell because if I had committed another unit that was back here, it would have caused a non-compliance issue, just like happened over here to Surbeck. So it's a little confusing, at least to me. And now we come down here, and Greater has a morale of 6 at -1, which means I need a 5 or less, or else I rout. And we don't get that, so the entire Greater unit is going to be routed. This is weird, man. It's just weird. I say that, what I mean is, first of all, it's just very different, right? But also, like in particular, what is very different is just the way that things are being tracked and manipulated, as opposed to the kinds of tactical games I'm used to, where you're worried about like the effects on an individual unit. And I don't mind the whole unit routing. There's something I like about that stuff, but this whole inability to really maneuver my forces very much. Very fitting in the concept of the linear warfare. I had somebody mention that the muskets of the period weren't as good as the ones, you know, that I'd see later on in, say, and I don't remember why this was the case, maybe for the firefights or whatever. Later on, like, say, you know, American Civil War, obviously. But you got to remember the Brown Bess basically lasted from I believe, not quite Blenheim. Yeah. So yeah, these are a little late in the next war. So in the 1710s or whatever, I think it was invented, and it basically carries through until the Napoleonic Wars, I think, for the English side. Now, obviously, not everybody had something that was as good as Early, but it was a nice, sturdy, effective musket. Now, at this point in 1693, you're looking at. I think there's still some matchlocks on the French side and shit like that in place. So you're definitely looking at much more primitive firepower there. On the Allied side, especially, and certainly in some of the French forces, you're going to be looking, though, at a higher, like, you're not looking back to matchlocks. You're already, I'm trying to think, I think you're already looking, did they have the prepared cartridge yet? I don't remember. This goes into it, or the playbook does. And now I can't remember. I think they had something kind of like one already in place. But anyhow, that first fire is definitely more important. Some other aspects, just because slightly more primitive weapons that are in play. Says this person who doesn't know what he's talking about, obviously. Okay, I'm going to go over to the Balear and try to figure out what the fuck's going on there. Let's take some thinking here. Okay, I was afraid one was across the line, which would throw everything offline. So they are in brigade integrity. They currently have a charge order. Do I want to withdraw? Well, I'm not going to get shit done with these guys unless I break those firefights, as far as I can tell. Which means we'll make yet another attempt, and I think it's a 5, as I have some leadership. And this time we succeed to get into dress ranks, so things can be a little easier. These guys can't recover, but these guys are allowed to back up, which is a big deal, and get out of those firefights. And now my unit's still there. Nothing else has moved forward in the line, so I'm not in any integrity problems there. But I have abandoned these Reeb guys. Of course, they're in dress ranks as well. And I've lost most of what I looked like I was gaining on this front. Great. And they dressed ranks, so we'll flip them over. Gotta remember to do that. That's hard to do. I still have 2 charges to look at. Salus's activation was kind of impressive, actually. I shifted into place to make my attacks. I hope I was consistent. I think I was, but now I'm like having doubts. Because I know I pulled a unit from here. Like if I had a hole here or something, there was a real problem, and I'm afraid I may have. But pretty much everywhere where I had to make really bad attacks, this one, I kind of would have liked to have broken the firefight for Reynaud. But I got firefight results, which aren't too bad. And this one, I actually got, I think I was at like -1 or something. I got my first fire in with that one and managed to rout the Hanoverians on a 1 AR result. Okay, so it sounds like the attacker's going to retreat, right? But I ended up routing the enemy, and I forgot to put a route marker down. I'm so unused to these suckers. I'm like, hey, unit's destroyed, right? Make it go away. That means I have to check Hanover for a route. Now, Hanover's over here. It has a morale of 9, but this is the second unit that's lost, so its morale drops down to a 7. So there's some chance, but it holds. With Renault, I have interesting options. I am facing this vertex, so this becomes my primary strike for this stack if I don't get out of charge. This stack has to strike here. This stack is in firefight, doesn't get to fire. These guys are stuck behind the lines and can't do shit. Nothing can cross this line, this imaginary wing line, even though, like, I would really like, you know, to have done something with Balial to try to make room for, you know, this other force to overlap, to just move over just a little bit. I don't want to move a whole brigade over or whatever. It's too late for that anyway. But so that's what I would have to do if I attack. If I dress ranks, the only advantage I get out of it is a recovery here and a chance to pull my units back and do something. But I've got kind of a nice salient here that I'm hoping can cause problems for the Allies. Of course, it was a lot nicer when all of this looked like I was across the river or a stream and causing real issues. But now it looks like I'm not. So I think I will continue that charge without making a check. That is an interesting facet. Unless your force becomes out of compliance in some way, it's just not hard to manage, but in some rather extreme way, like overlapping or in the wrong line or something along those lines, you can maintain a charge for at least some of your force. Now, if it loses the brigade integrity and like a unit's off on its own, that unit has to go join up with the others. But, oh, fuck, man. Wait a minute, maybe Salas was fine there. Brigade integrity. See, if some units are not adjacent, again, that doesn't feel like that's worded right. My impression from the concept of linear combat or warfare is that the entire brigade has to be together. You can't have it broken into three little three little sections that are a couple units each. Basically, you should have to define, okay, here's the main force. That's allowed to keep charging. The rest of it's not. But I'm not sure. I feel like I'm going to have to play this kind of fast and loose and fuzzy. Which is to say, yeah, you know, something like Salas, not Salas, Surbeck here, I might have been able, like if there was a unit under here, well, there was a unit on top of there. Hold on, there was a unit on top of there. So these two would have been together, and all of these would have been together. And I think they actually should have kept their charge. I'm not going back on this, but fuck, man, it's not clear. It's not clear, right? Like, could I continue my charge in two pieces? Or do I have to bring the brigade together somehow? And the latter makes more sense to me, except for the problem that it might be possible to bring the brigade together. Let's say I had 2 units here and a couple of units here and some stuff in the back by charging forward. Of course, unless those 2 units were together, they wouldn't charge forward. So I don't know. It may be kind of a, hey, as long as you've got a supporting unit, you can kind of operate, right? Of course, you know, if you're spread all over the place, the problem is I have to fix the issue with these guys. And Yeah, I can't tell you whether I'm cheating or not. I really can't. I'm beginning to understand if Gilbert was playing, Gil Collins was playing and fiddling around with the units to see how they worked, I think I do get why he had an issue. I got kind of the impression he just kind of read the rules and said, this doesn't make sense. I'm a little slower, so like the it doesn't make sense doesn't come to me until I start actually moving units around on the board. And now I'm like, I did something I hated, right? I did something I hated over here with Surbeck because I thought I had to. And now I'm thinking I may have violated the rules and that I didn't have to and I had to not do that. And it's just not clear. It's like, there's no easy way to state what the core concept here is, okay? And what the ordering is. In terms of what do you have to fix and how do you have to fix it and stuff like that. Now, yeah, actually the ordering is Brigade Integrity beats the others and whatnot, but oh, fuck, man. All right, I gotta swap batteries and then I'll finish this last one and then I gotta break again. And so like each 20-minute turn is taking me, you know, a day's worth of play time for me, which is a couple hours. That kind of time for, you know, oh, it feels obscene, you know, but I don't know, if you think about like the musket and pike system, where there's a lot going on in terms of, you know, in any particular activation, there's a lot of shit going on. It's not that bad, but a lot of the overhead is this angst about, do I understand what the rules even mean? And it's not, like, it's probably rooted in they're not written sufficiently, but I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I don't understand some of the concepts, like some of the underlying principles. If I understood the underlying principles, this is enough of a framework that I could work with it, but I'm caught on this. Do they mean this? Do they mean that? And I don't know. And nailing it down with the rules, I probably would still be having just as much trouble because it's very hard for me to cope with very procedural, precise type rules and get them right. Because I don't necessarily take away that core concept. What would be much better is for me to kind of have the core concept of, yeah, look, I don't know. I just don't fucking know. I mean, this Brigade Integrity, I don't trust that it's written exactly as it's meant. But I don't trust that it's not either. That's the problem. Like, I'm left with I can make an argument for either direction. Let me just do the last one. And then I'm wiped out for this, you know? I really am. I'm wiped out from just activating a few brigades. Okay, let's take the first one. This guy here was at like a -3 attacking into here. Great. I roll a 6. I get a straight AR, which means I'm not wiped out like I would be with a 1 AR. Now, oddly enough, the chances of what is actually a destructive result, which is the 1 AR, there are some AEs down here, so take that with a grain of salt. But the destructive results that I'm most familiar with are equal. But honestly, it's like 3-to-1 when it comes here. And this would be 2-to-1. So those AEs, Yeah, they kind of make sense because these are more situational, whether or not they're going to destroy the unit. It's just what I'm more used to looking for, so that's what I think of. So what did I get? So I get an AR, a regular AR. Now, this unit has to retreat. Here's the question. It can't retreat into here because there's an enemy, there's a friendly unit there. So am I on the block to retreat, or am I allowed to temporarily violate my wing orders? I think they are allowed to violate the wing orders at this point, just like I would be in a transition. Now this may throw my entire unit into a move command. Not right now, but next turn, if I can remember this. See, there's non-compliance due to transfer and commitments. There's brigade integrity. It would have brigade integrity. There's nothing that I found about non-compliance due to retreats. Because I'm in brigade integrity if I retreat to here. Yeah. Hey, what about interlocking zones? No. I'm in brigade integrity there, but I'm across the line, and that's no good, and I gotta fix that. Not now. I can't now. Although it's gonna cause problems for Balial if he's activated at least. This is, no, Salas is activated. I'm on Reynold. Yeah. So then my only other attack is this one here, which I'm sure isn't very good, but I at least get a first fire in that. Here I have an issue. So the French have a leader here, which I didn't count in the last one. I'm not sure whether it would have dropped me to a -2, but it would have been the same result either way. I had to pull my firefight markers back because I have to be able to see what's going on. Here I have 2 versus 2, because he's got an extra hit on him, because he's got a 2-hit marker underneath him, which indicates he takes 1 extra hit on his. You take 1 less than the amount of hits that are marked on there. Yeah. So the 3-hit marker wouldn't destroy him, and I hope I didn't fuck up with the Hanover, because that might have been quite possible. I'm okay. It's a 3 on the reverse that's the problem. Okay. I got a good result, which got me a 1 DR, and I don't know if it was this. I think it is. Or I'm sorry, it got me a DR. This guy's unable to retreat directly behind him. Not so sure, actually. Fuck. I'm not sure of the interaction with the village here, because the village has more room than other things. So I can't retreat into this hex. That's clear. But I think I might be able to retreat into that hex. If I'm not able to retreat, then I roll on here, and that'll be modified by his original CV, which is a 4. So I would need an 8 or higher to be destroyed by that. But I need to look into the village retreat. Oh boy. So the only place where it talks about the villages is the defense stacking, which would seem to allow like room to retreat if you were using common sense, but I don't think it actually does. But there are specific village rules for retreating, which means I could take another hit, and that's a 3, so it can take 3 hits because the 3 side would be at -1. Remember, it's basically a 2 strength point right now, so it can take 1 more hit without it having to fall apart. I'm looking for retreat. See, maybe retreat itself has some information on this. If I can find retreat rules. If I'm unable to retreat, I seem to remember there's something that actually tells you how you retreat. In fact, I thought I had found it just a moment ago, but now I can't. Oh, wait, no, I just can't violate stacking. So I could fall back, or I could hold my location. That's interesting. And what about flank? Did I have an open flank there? The French obviously did not. But did the English have an open flank? Now I'm lost here. I'm like, this is the thing. I'm like lost in one rule, and then I go to another. I think I actually had an open flank. It's not going to make a difference on the combat chart. Except that it would have been 2 open flanks, which would get me a 1 DR, which would be problematic. Let's look for combat in villages. Like I got village stacking. Yeah, I think flanking counts in the village. So yeah, I actually get hit with the 1 DR instead. So it's this, and now the choices are fall back or lose the unit. I don't want to lose the unit, but I am allowed to fall back into this hex, or this one for that matter. I wouldn't be violating stacking, but I'd be violating facing if I did, so I don't think I can do that. And that means these firefights go away. As I still feel kind of like, am I doing this right at all? That's these guys. These guys have to advance. That's broken this guy off from brigade integrity. So he's going to be thrown into a move order next time, but just him. And that's good because the rest of his command might want to continue charging. I don't know. It looks nasty to me. Anyway, with a lot of trepidation as to whether I did things at all right, whether I was correct in any of my activations, pretty sure that I'm not correct in all of them. Yeah. And no, we didn't have a route check, but we do have a leader loss check, because I got my leader with that unit. And I think it's a 9 that kills him. I put this over here because all of my units have charged. Feels like I'm going to need to break this video in 2, just because I'm struggling more and more and going into more and more detail. I don't know. We'll see if we can get it all in one video. One super long video. But yeah, it's kind of a nightmare trying to figure out what the fuck is going on in the sense that, like, I don't know how much of it is there are concepts that are just new and how much of it is those concepts aren't explained. Because I thought I had them. I really did. Reading the rules, it all felt like it made sense. Once I start trying to implement them, it really starts falling apart in my head. Maybe I'm just too fucking stupid. Either way, it's time to stop buying these games. All right, back up here, and it's the Allied turn. And you know, start thinking, there's a lot of room for a lot of kind of gamey stuff in terms of the pulsing, right? I think you have the same issue in Musket and Pike, to be honest. Where, yeah, you know, my choice of which unit to activate is, but it's more complicated here to determine that advantage. And whether it's gamey or not, I mean, it's part of the design concept, but it's a design for effect which circumvents certain other issues. Like, it's not necessarily introducing anything that's less reasonable than the I go, you go paradigm. So part of me is just like, hey, I know what I want to do with Ramsey. Let me just do him, right? But then there's this fairly hefty part of me that says, wait a minute. The French have done what they're going to do over here. Look, they're finished with everything except Reeb, and Reeb's in address ranks. He's not going to do anything. I can hold off on trying to dress ranks with, who the fuck is Ramsey? And there's perhaps some place where I'm more worried about the additional commitments, say over on this front or something, or flank. Or over here, I see there's a French unit that hasn't been activated yet with that, is that the Rottenburg that's there? No, it's the Roche-Goyon. The fuck is that? I don't know. Oh, that's over here. So that's this command. He's not doing anything too exciting. So I can make all these checks back and forth between the two boards to try to see where is there something. And this is something you don't have to do in Musket and Pike. In Musket and Pike, you look, first of all, there's a lot less commands on the board, a lot less units, commands, I'm calling them, on the board. And then also, each of those has its order just sort of positioned with it. So you can kind of see what's up, and, you know, it may not be a trivial decision, but this is a much, much more complicated tableau to try to assess for the, what's maybe the skill factor in both systems, which is choosing which units to try to move at any given time. It's really not all that much about the maneuver, it's about the timing, I think. And in this one, even more so, because there's really no maneuver. There's like these wild cav battles that happen in Musket and Pike that I love. But, that's an F. That's fine. So, like, I get confused. I think this is a leader on top of a unit. Again, it's that it's the signification of how many routed units there are. That is an old bugaboo that was causing me problems before. So I look here, the guard. I mean, what are they going to do? Well, Churchill could recover, which might be the best move. So, I mean, you know, I basically have to hunt for, look, this is unimportant. Let's look for something that's important. Well, the first one over that I found is Churchill. Perhaps even more important is von Hayden here. Let's look for him. He is in March, so I can try to bring him into dress ranks. I think that's what I'm going to do. And that's like a 2. March dress ranks. I'm no longer in firefight, and there's nothing else that impacts me. Hey, I succeed. And that means that I'm going to be able to recover some of the markers under here. I'll be moving to the French, but it's kind of interesting because normally, hey, look, you're in charge. You have to go first. You might be calling off the charge. Now you're in March. Well, you might get to dress ranks at that point, right? Or you might be able to drop from charge all the way to dress ranks, as opposed to, yeah, it's like it's your prior order that determines your priority in sequence, and that feels a little odd, but it also kind of works, right? I guess. I don't know. Let's go for my most complicated. My intention here was to move him up into this line to the right of Surbeck. If I cheat a little bit, this will work. But following that, I can't. I cannot comply. Okay? So I'm going to be in march order. That's fine. But what do I do with him? What is the order of compliance here? Because I'm in the front line, but I'm in the wrong position. Well, if I'm in the front line, I can't be behind units of the front line. I can't cross this boundary. But I also can't be to the left of him. So we don't have something that, I keep saying that we don't have this. We sort of do. Somewhere it tells me the order of these, but I don't think it's here. But I don't remember where the fuck it is that tells me which order I have to deal with in compliance. I really remember there was one. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to say I committed this way instead. Obviously, you know, in a competitive situation or whatever, you'd be like, no, you fucked up, man. But I did not understand, and I'm not sure I actually complied with, how the rules would apply to the Surbeck unit. Honestly, I thought I would get address ranks. I thought the chances were higher than they were. So by doing it this way, I drop him, he'll continue in march, and then all I have to do is move like this. 1, 2, 3. I don't think I can, I don't know. Yeah, artillery, I don't know. I mean, can I change the facing of the artillery to move in there? I don't fucking know. I doubt it. Let me look at facing rules now. And this is why it's so fucking expensive, is because, like, to figure out how to play. It's because so much is just so fucking weird. Let's start with artillery stacking. Only one artillery you can stack, move through. It costs an extra movement point to enter the hex. The artillery unit retains its own facing. Okay. Interesting enough. So I guess units can be facing in other directions. I don't think the same type can do that. I think this is a special case. So Herbonville, and this is what I was worried about, was like that there were weird facing rules here. But otherwise, conformance would be a pain in the ass, and we'd be into that Battles of the Age of Reason type shit where movement is just hellish. But here we've got something really weird. Now these have just moved into the hex, so they're actually behind the artillery. And now this, 1, 2, 3, I could move another one up, but I couldn't change facing in that condition. So that's as far as we go. We have flipped the counter or not, I don't know. I think we flipped the counter. So by a little bit of cheating, I got myself out of what was an ugly position. And I'm fine with that kind of cheating. I mean, oh, fuck. Okay, getting some pains that I don't like. All right, and that puts me back to the Brits to make a decision. And I know I'm zooming in again. Whenever I'm struggling with a game and not sure that I'm getting it right, I tend to video it more. So I tried to activate Churchill for dress ranks. Didn't get it. So he stays in move. I can still do quite a bit of stuff. But Surbeck has fallen out of his charge command, so I can't try to push him back anymore. Which again, feels odd, right? Except, yeah, there's still pressing when you're charging. So, I don't know. I guess you're not giving way, therefore, you can fire back or something. I really don't know. I don't know what's all being represented by some of these mechanisms. But in this case, they've halted and are no longer pushing forward. So there really isn't much that I can do with Churchill that I can see. I think this is John's brother. I could move 1, 2, 3. Like I could do some stuff. I don't see much reason for that. I could pull these out though. 1, 2, 3. I guess we'll go to 4 here in case this line breaks. I don't think the thickness actually helps me, but I'm a little worried about, yeah, but now I still can't retreat, and now it's more units that can't retreat. What's up? I don't know, but it's what I did. Churchill, no, he can't attack the guards either. They're not charging either. Interesting. What the fuck's up with them? Did they never get a charge action? No, there are guards all over here. I don't know why they're not under charge. That's weird. Lots of weird shit happens that I can't explain. Okay. All right, we had a little bit of nothing going on, of units unable to do anything, like, the second guards here tried to dress ranks, couldn't do it, just sitting there. But finally we got to these Roche-Goyon. And the first attack was into this firefight unit. These were both first fires for this unit. It was able to get a charge. But then it got repulsed. And am I cheating? Yeah, I am, because I was facing this way. I'm not able to retreat into that unit, so I had to retreat here. But then this guy, now, he's got a unit directly behind him, so he can't retreat. Although, yes, he can because it's a flank unit, but... So I think he actually falls back here, like this. Yeah. I think that's actually what happens, and I actually don't take that extra casualty, if that's the case. Yeah. Just retaining all the information and trying to apply what the hell is going on is hard here. But we don't get a hell of a lot there. And order was perhaps kind of important there. But you are able to retreat, just not violating stacking orders, but if I had a solid line with a unit behind me, I couldn't retreat through it. So I could retreat into being in front of something, but I don't think I keep I don't think different units have different facings in such a case. I think all units have to have the same facing, so I'd be colliding with part of that line or something, and therefore couldn't retreat there. But I can retreat there right in front of the enemy, no harm in that, right? Which, again, absolutely counter to everything I'm used to from other games. Gotta swap batteries. I'm frustrated with myself, I think even more than the rules, in the sense that I can't really get a grasp on what is going on with them. Basically a situation where I feel like I have so many different competing pieces of restrictions on what I can do and what must be done in any given situation, like the retreat and whatnot. And there ain't a lot of rules here, but I feel like I'm having to paw through them again and again to try to figure out answers to stuff like that. And it's not easy to find. So like retreat, there's no solitaire, like no singular retreat rule, right? There's this, which is the result, which isn't the answer. It says passing through units. Normally units don't move through each other, but that's okay. And I think that's the general rule I'm looking for here. But I mean, there has to be a rule. There's the unable to retreat rule. Figures 27 and 28 show how retreats and stacking interact. Yeah, I'm not sure how much I trust these things. With a red arrow indicating unable to and a green is allowable. So I'm allowed to retreat there. But what it doesn't show is how facing impacts this. Now, we had another rule back here, which we found facing for infantry stacking with artillery. But now if we go here, in the normal case, the units share the same facing. The village case is the difference. Yeah, am I allowed to change my facing to conform for the retreat? Not specified. I've said no because I believe that the more restrictive situation probably should apply. But again, it's not there. It's not in the rules. Anyway, at least the pain in my chest is gone, or at least I don't notice it now. I think I'm back on the Allies trying to figure out what they're doing. And I'm so worried that I don't flip a unit. Like, again, so many little things I have to keep track of, and I'm getting worse and worse at this kind of stuff. But when I'm facing, an incredibly different type of system, it's weird. It's like, I felt like Musket and Pike built off of things that I understood. I don't feel like this does. I feel like this takes a big, sharp left turn from most war games. And so like with Musket and Pike, I could rely on simpler games that had those same concepts. But because this is entirely new in so many ways, what's going on in this? Yeah, well, it moved up instead. Great. Before it was sort of in my side. Because it was, because Musket and Pike was able to relate to things like 1066 for the order system, to most standard tactical war games for most of the rest of it. But with this whole concept of the conformance rules, they're completely new. And it's being put in a system that's got a lot of complexity already still baked into it. Now, obviously, it takes a step back from the Musket and Pike level of complexity, and thank God for that now. I'm realizing, my first impression was, I want all that detail. Yeah, fuck that, man. I want it to be simpler at this point. I want it to focus. Like, I wish there was like a version of this that was the step towards it, right? Because I feel like I'm trying to take too big a bite all at once. And I think that may actually be some of what's going on with the rules, is that stuff that normally would be relied upon as like, you know, just canon for wargaming or whatever, you don't have to explain very heavily. But what's going on here, you kind of do. Wait, that brings an issue to play with the, this is just so fucking image heavy. But that retreat situation here. Look, it shows this and it shows this and says, and bing. I don't know what the fuck this one's showing, but this one's showing, which is the same as this one showing, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. There's like 2 extra images that don't make any sense to me here. But anyway. It's not covering the case that I want to find out, which has to do with the facing situation. And it's, you know, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, but honestly, in terms of space on the page, the picture is a lot harder to try to discern what they're talking about. First of all, they've got 2 that make sense and 2 that don't, right? Why is there a duplicate of this one? Why does this one exist? What is it showing me? I don't know. You know, maybe this is what happens after you've moved in, after this one. Maybe that's what it's meant to show. But I've got to interpret all this stuff. I've got to make up all these kind of stories to make the picture make any sense. Whereas they may not retreat into an impassable hex nor violate stacking. Well, it's not telling me important things like, do I get to change facing when I retreat? It's not telling me a lot. I mean, that's the clear thing that's being missing. But in a sense, this line handles everything here. And if you want to make this clearer, another sentence could be put into place. Remember, you cannot retreat through a unit that's directly behind you. Although this is fucked up and weird. This isn't right, okay? This unit may not be behind the enemy unit. You can retreat if you've got an open flank, if I recall correctly, right? I don't know, maybe not, maybe not. Maybe if you've got a flanking unit, you can't. And I've been doing that wrong. But I've been picturing it as, look, when I have 2 units in a hex, like here, one unit's here, the other unit is kind of cutting down this way, this one can retreat. It's got no problem, right? It's not directly behind. And I thought I had rules that supported that, but now I'm not so sure. Because I'm not seeing anything here except these fucking images. And then they cannot retreat into an impassable hex nor violate stacking. Well, this isn't violating stacking. It's something else. It's something else that has to be that's not it. That has to be relying on something other than that I've seen. Maybe it's in the stacking. The role of the bottom unit is to cover the flank of the unit in front. If either flank is not occupied by another unit, if both flank hexes, then the bottom unit is considered behind the top unit. If the top unit is forced to retreat, the bottom unit is behind it. Then the top unit is unable to retreat. If the bottom unit is refusing, yeah, that's there. So that picture is actually bullshit. That picture is lying. This is perfectly allowed because there's no flanks on here. God. So I was doing it right, and yeah. Oh, boy. My answer is generally ignore images, ignore examples. These things are bad, right? They're there for the person who can't understand the rules. And if you read the rules and the rules don't make sense, you look to them. But here it feels like part of the game is sort of baked. So if you knew all the rules, this makes sense. And that's what I relied on, and that's what I did. But once I start looking at the picture, I start just getting fucking confused because it starts to show me things that are incorrect. And blatantly so, you know? All right. Where the hell am I? I'm trying to figure out an allied force to move. Catch a couple of activations here. The British, well, I think I did a French one first. Didn't I? Yeah. Cadreau here, turned around and marched forward. Okay, great. I think we're all in compliance now, but at least we're facing in the right direction too. The Nassau Cav also is available up there. That's the last unit available to attack at this point. The English rearranged stacking in here after failing to address ranks. It's like, it's really hard to change your orders. And then Reeb here tried to move to a charge order. It would have been easier to move to a march order, but I kind of wanted to come charging across, slam this unit, which has nothing on its flanks, continue pressing here. I don't know, maybe not that bright an idea because I'm outgunned here, but whatever. I failed. I'm in dress ranks. Well, I can move a hex forward, and that's it. And that puts me back on the Allied side. Now, we're kind of running out of stuff, and I don't know what is the best choice. Like, activating stuff behind that might be able to serve as a reserve if something goes south. But for the most part, the French have activated all their units in the front, except for this. Not for the most part. They just have, I think. Well, wait a minute. I fucking cheated. I couldn't do Reeb here. Screw him. He's done. I'm not going back and fixing it. But yeah, he's in address ranks. This guy was not in dress ranks before, so he actually is in the right position. But this guy I cheated with. He was already in dress ranks. I shouldn't have been rolling for him. I should have had to go back here and done something back there. None of which is probably going to do a damn thing, because I've got no major transfers, and you know, they're in okay positions. Although I may want to wait and see if anything breaks. So like, I want to hold off on doing this, because if Nassau starts routing, these guys might have to shift around to accommodate that. Yeah. But other than that, yeah, other than that cheating, and fuck it, I cheated, too bad. What was I going to say? I was in the midst of something before I changed over. Anyway, I fucking don't care. I can do this guy. He's got no worries anymore. Because no one's adjacent, the only valid formation I can go into, or the only valid command I can go into, is march. So after aligning them and getting them together, that puts me over to, and that opens up some space for this cav if it ever moves to the front there. Then on the French turn, they go over and flip over Dalu and say, yeah, I did something. And I can move a piece if I need to, right? I don't see any reason to do that. But it's not passing. That's important, because otherwise the Brits could just say, okay, turn over. What I'm doing is I'm delaying so that the Nassau cavalry doesn't have to go quite yet. Okay. Well, the Brits could flip over a unit and say, okay, I'm done too. But the French have more units. So the two players are just going to say, look, let's speed things up. Do your cav, English, and then I get to do mine. Otherwise, we're just going to be flipping counters all over the place for no apparent reason. So, what is the English cav up to? They want to dress ranks. So they're standing at front march to dress ranks as a 2. And I got nothing going in my favor at all. And so I fail. And that means I'm in march formation. Yeah, the wrong unit, the wrong printing there. I don't want to change my position. So now I'm back on the French, and having chosen that, the French get to choose theirs as well. Do I want to charge? Get the momentum bonus. I have to do something, but it doesn't have to be much. I'm going to try to dress ranks and get my reserves in play. Charge would be easier. Okay. And we too fail. But I have to do something about this. And that'll be, I think, a legitimate change. And I think we're just about done at this point. The Brits will be flipping counters over and saying pass, and the French are willing to accept it. So that's going to be end of turn for this turn, which means, or end of the brigade activations. We go to routed unit movement. Remember, they move 4. And then they disappear. Oh, the French need to do something here. Hold on. This is Philippot. Philippot has to open up. Actually, I don't. Okay. There we go. And these flip over. I like that they kind of dissipate over time. All right, what's the next thing? Clean up and reset. And we're done. We're done with a turn. Well, that's my work for Thursday. And as I'm cleaning up, the only time when I'm looking at everything closely enough, I notice there's something I have to do. I don't know if I actually have to. I think I could have passed. The Hanover Brigade is in dress ranks, and they can't be, actually, because they're separated. So they actually would have had, if I activated them, and I'm not sure I have to, whatnot, but I put them in march, but now they're not allowed to get out of these firefights. Cool, huh? Under dress ranks, they would have been able to fix the issue. Under march, they're not. They're stuck in that position. And I don't know if that's good or bad, whatever it means, but I'm gonna standardize it as that. Part of the problem is the little orders counter was sitting on top of this. I thought I must have activated it or whatever. Nah. And we're just doing that big flip here of all these counters. We've done most of them already. But we forgot Alu. All right. So, last turn kind of ended looking like the French had made some gains here. Those gains have been washed away. But now they've made some gains here in Neerwinden itself, which may be of more lasting nature, or not, who knows. Over here, what had been a stalemate has turned into a broken mess. Not that the French units are routing or anything, it's just like whatever happened with Surbeck and my attempts to interpret how the rules should apply to them, which I think did not work right, have just caused massive problems. I don't know did I even notice this guy? I don't know. I guess I did. I don't know if I flipped him though. I don't think I did. I think he's gone. Not that he matters at all, right, with where he is. So he might as well be gone. It's kind of like this guy. He barely matters. And these guys are kind of annoying still for another turn. Over here, we did some relief, but otherwise, basically nothing's happening up there. And the reserves and whatnot, very little is going on. Really feels very, very static, which I think is right. I think that's correct. So we'll be moving into the 8:21 to 40 turn in the AM. And not a lot has happened, but I've spent a lot of time making nothing happen. All right, we'll send this one up.